Welcome to From the Heart. This is Leanne, and today I have a really special episode. I've been thinking about doing this episode for months now, and then it just kind of all came together because it was the day before Women's Day, and I'm like, why am I not prepared for this? So we're a bit delayed, but I'm super excited. This is about what I'm seeing around feminism, patriarchy, the definitions that people are using, and how the industries have kind of taken over our movement that are for people. So with Women's Day that has passed, happy Women's Day, everyone. I really wanted to bring it back to us. And I think that's a part of our job, just as humans on this planet at this time, which is pretty crazy, this world that we're living in. But it's probably like a weird world all the time. It always feels like there's things that need to improve. And so I'm a big fan of doing the work, ourselves. And I'm a big fan of speaking, bringing awareness. And then I also want to tell Karolyne and Prairie that if we have different opinions, that's great. It's fine. And I think the world needs to see more people have different opinions and just understand that opinions always change, and it's not something to be offended by. So I started off by Googling what feminism was, and then I had to stop because it was not making me happy. But what I do see, and I saw this, so and I wrote it down here. So financial institutions are taking up the struggle for equality by assigning it a new purpose, the fight for economic growth. So it really feels like it's not for women anymore. And of course, that's gonna aggravate us and not feel like it's ours anymore, right? And just in the same vein, I do feel that the anti-racism movement has moved towards institutions taking that over, and people of that the movement's supposed to be owned by people, right? It's supposed to be there and moving and be different for everyone. And I feel like it's just been taken over and made into one thing for everyone, which doesn't work. And again, the racialized people are the same, aggravated by what we're seeing. So I think I mentioned my definition of feminine and masculine in another episode, but I'll say it again. And it comes from Nina Lombardo, she's one of my teachers. My yoga teachers are also in here. Lee Harris is in here. My parents, who are my biggest teachers, and then lineage of my parents. Honestly, my family lineage is pretty feminist, but in the way that feels right for me, where it's fighting for the person that you are and the people that are around you based on what's happening around you. So my definition of the feminine from Nina Lombardo is the feminine is the experience, and the masculine is the experiencer. So what that means is, let's say you're meditating, you are containing, you're experiencing, you're the experiencer of your breath or whatever is going on in your body. So your mind is masculine to your experience. Or if you're in labor, you're the feminine, you're expressing what is happening, and the birth partner is the masculine, containing you with love. The ocean is feminine to the tectonic plates. So the ocean can thrash around and sometimes be calm and hold a whole lot of life. And then the tectonic plates are what holds it together so that the ocean can do her job, basically. So I'm just going to use that kind of terminology, the her and the she, just so that it's easy for us to understand when we're talking about feminine, when we're talking about masculine. But the feminine and the masculine live in all of us. And then when they come together, right? Yoga is union. And so when they come together, then it brings us to wholeness. So I'm speaking about the divine feminine and masculine. When I speak about the patriarchy, I'm not speaking about men. I'm not speaking about the divine masculine. And when I speak about the victim, I am not speaking about the divine feminine as well. But there is a place to be a victim and then to move out of that, which is what feminism is, in my opinion. It's a movement to get us out of the victim so that we can be more of ourselves. So, do you guys have anything to add about what I just said? Your experiences with what feminine is or masculine? Oh, I didn't even introduce you. Hi. So Karolyne has already been on my podcast, and she's been on the body image one.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like really it's kind of intertwined with what we're speaking of today. Mm-hmm. And I can link it in the notes. And Prairie is also my friend, and it's your first time on here, so thank you for coming. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I've been a lifetime listener. And I've actually envisioned being on here, but like in an organic way, where you asked me, I didn't want to say, oh, I want to be on the podcast.
Well, we were, so when I got excited about doing this episode and you were saying stuff, I'm like, you should just be on here. So
there you go, part of the feminine magnetism.
Yeah. Being organic and letting it flow. Do you guys have things to add to what I just said?
I would add, I can add for like the masculine and the feminine. So not only is the masculine the containment and the feminine is the flow, but it's also like the masculine is the direction. It's the point, going from point A to point B. It's the very linear structure, the organization, all of that. And the feminine, and it's like very in the head, the mind, the conscious. And the feminine is more of the being. It's the like feeling, the vulnerability, the emotions. And that's what seems to be suppressed in the world because it's seen as a weakness to be inner feminine, to be expressive, to show, but it's also our pleasure, our sensuality, our sexuality. So whenever we feel into the feminine, a lot of those parts seem to be tapped out and taboo and very stigmatized because it's coming into our pleasure and not as a performance for other people, but as our own feeling into our own power.
Yeah. And even if it's not pleasure, our experience is still feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and feeling into the pain, like feeling into all of the emotions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. From pain to pleasure.
Yeah. Expression. I think very much women and the female experience is about expressing. And we see that a lot where men are struggling today because they don't have a lot of other men to talk to. And I think while men need to honor their masculine, they also need that feminine experience to talk to other men or their partners. But that's very much what women embody, you know, since our ancestors long ago, there'd always be women's circles where women talk and gather and are vulnerable. Whereas men, it's more looked at as weak to be vulnerable, but as women, you know, in ancient times, it was honored for women to be vulnerable. Now that's gotten very confused. If women look vulnerable, they're looked at as weak. And I think that's where there's a lot of confusion and the definition has been blurred. But I think, you know, expression and vulnerability is really key in the female experience.
Yeah. And people pleasing is suppressing of that expression and what is truly going on within us.
Well, that's it. That's the performance aspect of it. We're performing instead of actually being who we are and showing the real us. We're putting on masks to please other people instead of
And what a trajectory it is to try to step out of that, because it's so normal to do that, to stop talking just because, at least for me, stop talking because I know I'm going to piss off someone. I'm not going to say something that the other person wants to hear. So I think that being vulnerable is actually really difficult. And to be in a relationship where you can be vulnerable and be held in love with your partner, we don't always see that, but that's what we should be aiming for, is more and more vulnerability, and know that that we don't need to withhold to receive love, and that it, like, the experience is love. So that's kind of like a little bit of like stuff that I've been learning from Nina Lombardo. And I do have a quote here. And so she says, "A woman in her full feminine expression is a force. She doesn't just hold energy. She moves as it.
Mhm.
And another thing that she says in all kinds of different ways, but the feminine is not passive. The feminine isn't just surrender, oh, let it be. The passive would actually be trauma. So it would be in the victim category.
The shadow aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I call victim. And the feminine is actually quite fierce, because a mom who sees someone who needs to be nurtured, and we're all moms, I'm not saying just like the one person who's a mom, but
That's me.
but it's in all of us. It's innate in all of us that when we see someone that needs to be nurtured and we can't get to them, we get fierce, like the tire comes out of us, and that can be really suppressed. And I even feel that moms sometimes don't feel like they would acknowledge that they have that fierceness inside of them for their children, but really they do somewhere.
Oh, I know I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah.
So I'm a bear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Which also lives in men, and maybe in a different way, but it can, like the mother archetype, the fierceness that wants to nurture, could be in men as well. It might show up differently, or it may not, because sometimes there are relationships where the man is more the nurturer and it comes more natural to him.
Yeah. I find it hard. That's something I'm working through, is trying to not lean into the people pleasing aspect for myself. But when I see my friends being hurt, that's where like my mother instinct comes out, and I will protect them and I'll be there for them. And one of my closest friends, she really embodies that and inspires me to do that. So you have those friends that when you need the truth, you go to them. For me, that's always women. Like I have a lot of male friends too, but like if I need the truth and I need to hear it how it is, I need someone to tell me honest, something maybe I don't want to hear, I go to my women in my life. Yeah, it's the skill that women have.
Yeah. I don't know where I learned this from, but the truth in the moment is the feminine truth. And then the truth that will last you forever is the masculine truth. So I don't mean forever, but I mean like when you make a decision and you know and you've thought about it, and that's what you're going for, and you're like the direction, that is the masculine truth. But the like how I feel right now when you said this to me, that's the feminine truth. So that's like another kind of
that's like the David Data.
It might be
thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just moving on, unless if you guys have other things to
I have
say.
one. Yeah, actually, I'll add one more thing. So the masculine is also our inner safety. So we can't actually have one without the other. Like we can't truly be in our feminine, because we need that containment and that safety for the feminine to come out. And we can't only be in the masculine, because we do need that softness and that ability to float and because it just doesn't work. Like they're both very connected to each other.
Yeah.
So it's not just like the yin and yang where it's 50-50. It's more of a dance and more of a flow between the two, of like what's balancing. Right now I'm tapping it a little bit more to the masculine, but I also need to be strong in the masculine to be able to show my feminine.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We need a spine to be able to even create life, right?
Because
the spine would be the masculine, and the belly would be the life. Yeah.
Because that's it. It's like if, let's say, women want to feel more into their feminine, what they actually need is to strengthen their masculine, to feel safe, to feel like that they can actually contain themselves and contain their emotions and contain just this, so they can actually feel more into their feminine, and vice versa.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's not something everyone would say.
No.
But it's very valid that you need to feel more safe. That's a big thing in today's society too. Like women don't feel safe, but then they're told to be leaning and honor their divine feminine. But how do you do that if you don't feel safe? Yeah.
So it's strengthening your masculine.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't thought of that, but it's very, that's something. How do you think strengthen your masculine when you are a woman who has maybe more of a feminine energy?
This is what I would say of like really listening to your body, tuning into what a full body yes and a full body no means, and honoring your boundaries. And also not just like for me, I found that pole dancing has actually really helped me strengthen my masculine, because not only it's very linear and like learning the tricks and stuff like that, but I've noticed that I've become just mentally stronger because I was getting physically stronger. And then I was like, oh, I'm like really coming into my own power and facing a lot of different fears on the pole that I would normally not face in day-to-day lives. And then this would help me to bring it into my day-to-day life. And then this is what kind of helped me come into my feminine and being able to let her come out, because then I have that stability and that stillness and that strength. And not just physical, but like mental and everything. So I've noticed that that's been a really big shift for me personally. Yeah.
I would say shadow work for me. So like removing the shadow of what I feel it is to have a temper tantrum and be vulnerable when I'm upset and saying this isn't right. And but then like when you were talking about pole dance, you have to do shadow work for that, because a lot of people think different things of what pole is, right? So but
there's also like a lot more of like the inner experience that people don't realize when they're looking outside in. But like to actually overcome a move and to face failure multiple times, like women are not used to failing, especially as adults. So this is where when we actually start to learn a new skill, we're gonna suck at it. It's
that's on like yoga too. What you're saying about failure and like coming back and today is just a practice. And
that's it. Yeah. So it's really coming into like learning how to fail, learning how to be vulnerable at first, and learning how to accept like, oh, I'm such a failure, but can we look at it in a different light of this is challenging me. So this is the victim, I guess the drama triangle too, of like, instead of me being a victim of like, oh, I suck at this, I'm never trying this again. Now we're looking at it more as like, this is a challenge. How can I overcome this challenge? I have a choice between feeling like this or feeling like I want to move past this. And
we're bringing it down to like pole and yoga, but really like those are little practices for the bigger things in life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe strengthening your resilience too.
Absolutely.
The failure, you do. I do see that the masculine faces that a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of society maybe idealizes that, is because, oh, men can fail and it's okay. They shake it off and then they succeed. And women are meant to be, we're sort of held on a pedestal. Like you need to be perfect. You need to do it this way. You need to be a perfect mother. And it's okay to fail, and strengthen your resilience, I think, is really what that comes down to.
Yeah.
It's
and
important.
Fail just means first attempt in learning.
Yes. Yeah. We all sucked at something at one point. Like if you've ever gone skiing or snowboarding or skating, those are all very wintry examples, but it's winter right now.
Riding a bike.
Right?
Yeah. Learning how to walk.
Yeah.
Or relearning how to walk after an injury.
Yeah.
There's just something, because we're going into the suppression of the feminine, and then what I was thinking is also when women go into labor, when you go into the hospital, they close the door, they offer you the epidural, and I feel like there's a abnormalization of a woman making noise. The noise is disturbing us, which is just like it's you're disturbing me because you're upset right now. I don't want to see you upset.
I don't want to see you in pain. That's something my father always said. I used to struggle a lot with menstrual cramps. They were really, really painful, really bad. I would throw up and I would be moaning in a lot of pain. And my father could not even look at me or be around me. And he would say, like, I need to leave the house. I'm uncomfortable. He was a very old-fashioned man, but I thought, like, this is bizarre.
Like,
and
what?
yeah, thanks, Dad. Like, I'm in
Yeah.
a lot of pain. Like, can you offer me something? But that whole experience taught me about making noise, because this actually happened the other day. We were in the car. I was having a bit of a cramp. It had been a long time since I felt that pain, but moaning and just making noise felt so much better. And I've always said, if I do have a child, I'm going to be very loud. I'm going to be singing mantras. I'm going to be screaming.
As you should.
Yeah, there should be
As
no
you
shame.
should.
Like, if
Yeah.
I'm in a hospital and it's bothering them, then
They can
F
fuck it.
off.
Yeah.
Can we swear?
Yes, that's fine.
I'm sorry. Not sorry.
That comes from inner work, right? The shadow, like you have to be able to contain, like to hold yourself, to contain. So masculine, know that it's okay for you to express yourself. But if you're someone who has never expressed yourself and has worn the masks and all that stuff, that's when the suppression of your expression will happen, whether it's in an argument, in conflict, whether it's when you're in pain, whether it's when you're in labor, and everyone expresses themselves in labor. And I just also want to tell people that there is a small amount of people who don't think that labor is painful. They don't describe it as that. But just,
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it
is-
as painful.
No,
I would say it's
intense.
as pressure, but it wasn't painful.
Yeah. Thank you for being an expander, because I wish there was more expansion.
And I've had 2 babies. I've pushed
Yeah.
2 babies out of my vagina.
Yeah. And you had no meds. So
No,
what
I
you
did
was-
full, yeah.
And it's okay to have medication. It's okay but there's a time and a place, and
Mhm.
putting fear. So what I think the patriarchy is instilling fear and control and manipulation, whether you're a woman or a man. So that's why, like, it's okay to have the epidural when it's needed, when your baby's in a bad position, you've been in labor forever, like whatever reason. But we create more pain when we are stealing fear in people. So
and it's the fear, pain, tension cycle.
right. Yeah.
So like the more you fear it, the more you'll have tension, the more pain, and then the more pain creates more fear, the more fear creates more tension, and then it just
And what a woman
spirals.
needs to do when she's in labor is to open, so tension actually contracts, and then there's a contraction, but then there needs to be
There's
the
the release.
opening after. And the release is actually, so like the release of the contraction is longer than the contraction when it's a normal labor. So there is a quote that I read somewhere, and it says that the patriarchy has overtly harmed women and has covertly affected men. And I like that, because it shows that that it affects everyone. And then, so I do have 2 studies, my usual steadiness. There's 2 studies. So one of them shows that, I'm going to pull them up just so I can be accurate here. There is a study that shows that when women don't express themselves in conflict in their marriage relationship, that they are actually more likely to die of coronary heart disease within a few years than people who don't express themselves. So I link the abstract to that. And then there's another study that shows that for women who have fibromyalgia, if they inhibit their anger, their expression of anger, it's actually predicts a heightened pain in the everyday life of that woman with fibromyalgia. So it just shows that the importance of what we need in reclaiming the feminine, or whatever we want to call it, coming back to that, for me, is feminism, rather than showing everyone that I can be a man and that I can be burnt out and work 24/7 and
over caffeinated, overstimulated,
like all that stuff, and like protect everyone, all of my colleagues, and like everything that I've done before. And we've all like I think that burnout is actually really common, and that we all have to learn from. Well, maybe not all of us have to learn from, but a lot of us are going to have to learn from it, because we're moving out of like this overwork kind of thing. So to me, the patriarchy is a culture. It's not a man. It's not one person. And we can't point the finger at someone because it's a whole lineage that has been living for a long time. And we are just moving and living into this world where we're learning all these conditions basically that we've been told are right. So just a few, so the drive for productivity, status, economy, and division of people, if that's continued, the world suffering will increase. We know that. And since 2020, we've seen so much drive for more money. Yeah, we've seen profit increase, and now we're terrified again that it's going to happen, even though it's never stopped. And then it's dividing people, and it's instilling fear again and division. So that to me is the patriarchy that, and I'm not going to blame one person for it, even though some people might want to do that. I really think that it's a culture, and that we each have to learn from it and move in a different way and do our own thing. That's just my take on it. I also think that the patriarchy is the society that capitalizes on people's sense of inadequacy. So kind of, and in part, going back to the body image and how much women and also some men have some issues with that. And it's it's a money grabbing thing, right?
A lot of men do. They just don't admit it as much. But I think a lot of men, especially in Western cultures, have a lot of body image issues. There's tons of men now getting hair transplants, and that's totally okay too. But I don't think that was, 10, 20 years ago as much of a thing.
The pressure to do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, even getting Botox and even getting all of that, that's also normalized now for men.
Yeah, and these height extensions, these very painful surgeries where they break their legs and add
bone tissue.
Bone tissue and poles or metal in order to make a man taller. And it's apparently a very painful and huge recovery process. And you think, oh my gosh, just to add a couple of inches, that's a huge thing. And I mean, to me, that's what you're talking about is very much what I see the patriarchy as. It is the culture, and it's the whole capitalist society. You need to do more, you need to be better, look better, make more money, you need to grind, you need the hustle culture. It's so attractive and addictive, money, 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 have this beautiful car. And I think maybe the redefinition of patriarchy and feminism is more being in line with each other and our true desires of what do I need in my community? What do I need in my personal day-to-day life to be happy? And we're so out of touch from that. And something I heard recently was that to combat totalitarianism or injustice, we need to, first of all, have community. So if we want to combat that, and if, just in this instance, if you want to combat the negative effects that this patriarchy, feminism, capitalist society is having on us, having community, having these types of discussions, having a place to go, having women or men circles, being able to talk about that, finding ways to lift yourself up and lift our society up is so important. And then second was joy. It's very important to have this work, but then it's also very important to set it aside, maybe at the end of the night, and, dance or sing with your community, laugh. Because if you don't embody that joy, then they win. Whatever.
The patriarchy.
Yeah, the patriarchy, the government, whoever it is, whoever's bringing us down.
The culture. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
So that's why it's individual work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important to have your joy and community. And that's something I'm really starting to come into. Yeah.
Yeah. I also don't like to I know that we're talking about capitalism, and in part that means that some people make more money than others and that kind of thing. But then there can be some other problems with with systems that don't think like that. So sometimes I just want to like mention that there is good things in our society. So like,
Yeah, because I don't think necessarily capitalism is a bad thing. Because I own a business.
Yeah, I love
This is
money.
capitalism.
Yeah, I do love money.
But it's not just loving money. It's
the
like this,
fear of not
I
having
work to make money. And that's what puts food on the table for me. It's like I am a capitalist business. That's just what the structure of any business is like, but it's the greed that we don't want.
Yes.
It's the greed of like, oh, I'm going to get more power. I have to have more money. It's like, no, you are building a business for in a capitalistic society, but where was I going with this? Yeah, it's like feeling into what is the intention behind it? What is your why? What is your purpose? And what are your goals? And applying that and playing the game to get to the goals of like your own goals, but really feeling in alignment with yourself. And is this in alignment with your soul, or are you just playing because you want greed and you want more money and you want more power? So I feel like that's the difference of
definitely. I agree. The ethics of it. Like, are you trying to exploit people and hurt them? Or are you trying to,
or do they
empower?
even know? Do they even know that they are doing those things? So like, it's what is the mindset of the leader? Even if the leader is a man, those people won't necessarily look for attention, or they'll actually keep like assessing the impact that they have. And like being a leader or someone who owns a business, you have the hard job of having to fire people. And like, is that hard on you? Of course it is. Like I would assume.
It's harder managing people.
Yeah, because you have to make decisions and you have to step out of people pleasing. And if you're talking to me, it's easier for me to people please than it is to make decisions like that. So, but that's just my work towards moving out of the patriarchy, right? And into what I call feminism, my version of feminism.
Can we define our own versions of feminism?
Yes.
Can we go there?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's yours?
Let's start with you.
With me?
Yeah.
I had notes somewhere. Okay. So basically what it is for me is just to keep learning that no one else is my authority and that is just me. So coming back to myself, how does this make me feel? Because when I was making decisions, when I was working, I wasn't really feeling into how tired I am. And I had this mindset of like, get me, attack me so that my colleagues can do their work in peace. Yeah, I like that was my mindset. Like for 5 years, I was like, attack me, get me. I'm like, get me. And then so because I had some kind of leadership role, and so that was too much. And I was so I learned the hard way. But I think learning the hard way is like the best way to learn and to move forward in becoming more and more of what the world needs. So and then this comes from Nina Lombardo. It's like to be in devotion to my experience, which means the same thing. It's like learning from my like inner authority. What is my body saying? What are my emotions saying? And then either leaving situations that are no longer good for me, starting something else. Like this podcast is for me. Yeah, it's for me. So it has released a lot for me. And so I don't care about viewership. You were asking me how many viewers, I have no idea. So that's like a little bit of where it is. And it's also honoring the differences between feminine and women, but also feminine and masculine, and also men and women, because we feel the need, like whatever people are saying feminism is, it's about telling men that we are like them. And I feel like we need both. We like, who would we be without mothers? Who would we be without maidens and crones and intuition and like resiliency and strength and like saying no? Like that's saying no is actually feminine. It's like being that wave that crashes and saying like like I'm destroying this thing, right? It's not working for me. So that's the feminine. And so and in general, like that would be associated with the woman. we're, but so anyways, that's what it is for me. Yeah. What is it for one of you?
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of different categories of feminism, and one of them that I don't necessarily agree with is that like there's this movement that has been growing that it's like women are better than men, and like we have more power, and so men are bad and men are to blame. And then that's but it's also, yeah, it's like stepping into like this, because we've been so hurt by men, now we're flipping it back and we're hurting men. And it's like this, the oppressed have become the oppressors.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that, because that's coming into your victim mode. This is like women trying to fight back and put the blame onto other people, whereas like, well, look at yourself, what have you done? Like, I don't know if abuse or anything like that, was it necessarily your fault? No. Did it happen to you? Maybe. But if it did, there's also like this reclamation of coming back into our own power and not putting all of the blame on somebody else, where it's like you have a choice to make of staying in the victim and again, or being your conscious creator. So I think my definition for me is that there's no gender that's better than the other. This is all us taking accountability for ourselves and living amongst ourselves with respect and with with love, and not putting the blame onto other people. But it's really like, how can we become a better human to and just really, it's like it's coming back to us as an individual.
Yeah, no one's ever gonna win from a blaming game.
No,
it's actually entering a masculine war to do that. It's entering the
it's the feminine. Yeah, it's the feminine shadow of pointing the blame to others.
It's not. Yeah, it's not from the heart. Yeah,
exactly.
And then and then I just also want to say that like from 2020 to 2022 or something, like we were really learning about the victim state point of view, and I think there was something to learn from that. But I think that we're all tired of like either being in there or and making decisions from that place. And I think that a lot of us are moving away from that kind of sort of mentality, because it's not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable to be in the victim's place. And I think that moving out of it is necessary for all of us to thrive. Yeah. Even if it gives us a little bit of a something to blame something on someone else, right? For whatever the reason is, it's just not a place to stay. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you brought this topic up, Kato, because I wanted to talk about it too, of just the fight of feminism that has created
a war,
and the pendulum has completely gone the other way, where I hear it and see it in my everyday life, where women are saying, I hate men.
Yeah.
And it makes me so sad.
So
because I love men. I mean, I'm not trying to discount like things, injustice against women is still an issue. There's still tons of women who are not given equal opportunities. There's women in other countries that don't have rights to vote and drive. And that is so sad and so horrible. And there is so much work that needs to be done. And there are lots of men that treat women poorly in our society here in the West and elsewhere. That's not, I think people get into that and want this thing of revenge. Like, revenge is not the answer. It's about rising above and coming out of that victimhood, which is really difficult. Like, really we've all been there in some way. And I've experienced that, and it's really hard to let go of that identity. But when you do and you rise above, you really claim into your power. And that's where like the feminine is. Like when you reclaim, like you can alchemize that pain into beauty and into having, making change for people today and for honoring your life, that's the divine feminine right there, you know. And there is such a sickness going on right now with this, and you know, and then you're seeing men not know what to do. I've had this conversation a lot with you know, my family, where they say now men are really portrayed in media or books as there's just this funny example of this children's book where like men are just looked up as dumb idiots now because they're so scared, you know, especially now here in the West. They understand the harm that has happened to women and they want to do better, but they don't know how because women are bulldozing over them. And they're just now thinking they have to be submissive and meek. So I see a lot of these examples in media and our literacy where men are just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just some dumb idiot. Ha, 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 ha. And then like the audience laughs and you're like, why are all the men being portrayed this way? Like, no. And then you hear more hate on men. Like, well, we just need men to be men again. And we're like, well, are women allowing them to take up that space?
No, they're not.
No. So there's like a huge shift that's been happening, and I think we really need to come back and honor each other's, you know, beauty. Like that's where harmony comes in. Yeah, and it's not just yin or yang. I like that. It is like a dance, you know. Sometimes 1 hour you need to be more feminine and the next you need to be more masculine, and that goes for men and women. So it's lots of work to be done.
Just one that can come easier to a person than another.
When that's it, like I hear a lot of like, especially married couples with kids, it's like, oh, the woman is always feeling like she's doing everything. And then like the husband, let's say, is just like sitting on the couch drinking a beer. And then it's like, it's always that resentment between the two of like, oh, he never does anything. He doesn't step up. He's not being a man. And then you see the vice versa, like, or the flip side of the man being like, I'm not going to do anything because it's all wrong.
Yeah.
And it's never good enough. So I'm just going to let her do everything. And then this creates this like tension between the two and this like reverse polarization as well of like not being into our full, I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's very much this, in order for the man to step up, like the women need to not tune down, but
give them
space.
Yeah.
Give them space.
Men love to feel useful. I see it in labor all the time. And the other thing is sometimes a woman has to be in her feminine and express how hard things are for her.
Well,
and to be in, hopefully in a relationship that is contained with love, and that she can express just how depleted she is, and this is enough.
Yeah. And the men will listen. They want to help. They will step up if there's communication and openness and mutual respect and honesty. The roles will shift.
As long
or
as
not the roles will shift, but the partnership will grow together.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's where sometimes I'm still trying to figure that out because I'm not in a partnership or I don't have a family, and you know, I see these things and I have my ideas, but I'm like, oh, how am I implementing them? I don't know. And I think the only answer I have right now is just the communication. It can always be like, you can express your anger, but it's how you express it. Like you can say, oh, I'm not feeling honored. But if you're maybe, and whether it's the man or woman, like saying really hurtful things, like you're not a man because X, Y, Z, like that's very harmful for men. And if a man says something very like you're a bad mother because you didn't fold the laundry, like that's very hurtful. It's more like, hey, I would really appreciate if this was done. Like, this is what you said you would do, or, you know, it's just how you say it. Communication is so key. And I think in the world we live in now with a lack of communication due to technology and hiding behind our screens, people are thinking
passive aggressive.
That's it.
Silent treatment.
Yeah, the explosiveness. And based on all the abuse and trauma I think previous generations had, like the generation we're in is very this weird, like, it's either really traumatic types of communication, and now there's this passive aggressive technology form of communication. So I think that's just, in my mind, the way we can work on honoring each other's feminine, masculine in our partners is working on communication.
And also just honoring ourselves.
Yes.
And coming back, like it really
Exactly.
comes down to, are you doing your work?
Exactly.
And are you checking in with yourself? Are you becoming, like, are you doing your shadow work? Are you doing your awareness? Are you like, because now I've noticed if I have an argument with my husband or whatever, it's like, yeah, I'll yell and I'll be angry. But then later on, I'm like, oh shit, that was hurtful, or that wasn't his fault. It was my own shit that came up and I got triggered. So then it's like, okay, then I'll tell him, we'll talk about it afterwards. Be like, sorry, you know. And then he does the same. So yeah, it's like
So like, hopefully relationships, people see them as containers for growth, and we move out of the relationship when there's no longer growth, where we can't grow with that person anymore. But hopefully we find someone where we can continue to grow.
Yeah.
And then there's like, if like things are feeling really off, then we can learn together nonviolent communication, and we can grow from there. And then if everyone takes accountability for their self, this is the taking the self, right? So if I stay and I'm a people pleaser and I don't express how this is hurtful to me, and even though,
and you're going to build resentment.
exactly, and then it's going to build up. So like it comes to discernment at the beginning of dating too. Like, can that growth happen with, some people are not ready for it, right? So I also want to say, like, from the how I see the patriarchy as a culture, that there's never enough and we need to make more, more money, let's say, or I do want to state that boys are actually more affected by autism and behavioral disorders and criminality and other things than women are. So I do think that the rise in the feminine is going to help with the rise in the masculine, rebuild both. Like another example is just of how it affects on a day-to-day life, and not just health, but also when a father becomes a father, does he have the time to appreciate the newborn child, or does he have to go right back to work? Right. And the same for women. Like, honestly, is a year, like mothers and babies have such a hard time leaving each other at the 1 year mark. Isn't that telling us something? Like, well, they're both crying. So we're putting too much emphasis on making money and moving up in status in our jobs, when really you've decided to do something that is completely different, and it would honor the feminine more, the motherhood, the creating life. And can we value that just as much or differently or whatever than like just the status building? Can we see that as something that's going to bring us something that we can't get in any other way?
Yeah, because that was a big struggle for me. And so, like, having babies, but also being a business owner, it's like I can't have it all, so I have to choose one and prioritize one. So it's like, it's either I take care of my kids while they're young, or I try and grow the business and neglect my kids. So which one is going to be neglected, right? So it's like, okay, first I did focus on my kids, and now I'm in the growth phase because they're in daycare and whatever. But it's still a struggle in this society, in this world, because that's how we make money. That's how we can feed ourselves. That's how we pay the bills. Like, there's no other way, really. Like, both parents have to work, especially with these, like,
I don't agree that it has to be that way, but it definitely feels like it has to. Yeah, it feels like it has to be this way. Yeah.
For me, I don't see any other way. Like, I could have been just a stay-at-home mom, but I feel like for me personally, that's not fulfilling enough. Like, I need to have my own thing and do my own thing, because otherwise I would just go nuts. And like kudos to all the stay-at-home moms, like they're fucking badasses. But I don't understand. Like I wouldn't be able to do what they do.
Is there a way to build community? Is there a way to build a business where you get to work just a few hours a day when your kid is with a nanny or a grandma or something, where you get to create, but it's not like these 8-hour days or 24-hour calls?
Yeah, because owning a business really is like, it's not a 40-hour job. It's really.
Is there a way to support yourself differently?
Yeah.
So there are expanders out there. Like Lexi Phillip is one where she just reduced how much she was working, and right now her focus is on her little kids.
Yeah.
So I think that seeing that we can do differently is actually really important, especially in this world right now where we're seeing all the profit increasing all the time and having to spend more. I think it's really important that we keep showing ourselves that it's possible to step into listening to her bodies. Like, can a woman who has a hard time leaving her child know that she doesn't have to go to work? Right now, there isn't a lot of
There's not a lot of options.
There's not a lot of women who feel like they have options.
Yeah.
But can we change our mindset and say that there's different ways of working? Can we change what we think of work, and can we work in an environment like, actually there is change in like the work environment where sometimes a child is sick and the mom or the father will have the child, but they still get paid, and they're less available to their work, but it's not a sick day for them. There's companies that are doing that. So there's ways of doing, like Born. So the data entry people for birth in Ontario, they do that. So the people who work for them, if their child is sick, it's not a sick day. They have their child, they're taking care of their child, they're less available for work, but they're still there. Yeah. So there's ways.
It would be nice.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. Like, we need to, I think, if you want to work as a mother, go for it. But if you need more time, or all the time,
Or
I think there should be more options. And the way our society is built right now, it's not possible, especially.
No,
like,
it is. I'm saying it is possible. Yeah, and like it needs to expand more. Is what I'm saying.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's just very difficult at the moment, and I feel like part of my passion that is just starting is I want to help that become accessible for mothers and families, like being there. And I mean, I don't know how that would be feasible for me, but like, I just want to have a community where we do live amongst more women again, where if a woman needs to be somewhere or is hurt or sick, there's other women there helping support her baby. And this baby knows these other women, aunties in her life. Like, I think that the way things used to be in that way were so helpful and supportive. And it would be wonderful if we create more of that. And Sweden too, I know they have like a really great system in terms of like fathers get paternity leave, mothers have a long time, and even grandparents get financial compensation for taking care of their babies as the nanny, which is incredible. Like, it's supporting all of the generations in the family. And I'm like, yeah, we need this. It is possible, as you said. We just need to advocate for it more, and it needs to become more of a priority in our society, rather than maybe nuclear warfare or whatever is on people's minds. I don't know.
The inner war, right? If we focus on the inner war, that will change our lives. So I also Kasia Urbanak, I don't know if I'm saying
Kasia, I think it's Kasia Urbanak.
Yeah, and then lots of other people always say that if women were to support other women, celebrate other women, it would be the end of patriarchy. So I actually was in a conversation with someone who said that it's natural for women to be jealous of one another and be in fights and that kind of thing. And I looked at him, I was like, that's the patriarchy. So that's his work. He needs to kind of look at that and how he gets involved and how he involves himself in that kind of thing, where women are pegged against each other, or women, like how he sees that.
And it's funny because that was my reality before I came into this work. So it's like that's how I grew up. This is like we're always in competition with one another. We're always having to look better and be like, why do you think women always dress up for themselves to go out? It's because they want to look better than the other woman or look as good as. Oh, wow. So you're not actually dressing up for the men. Really, like for me anyways. It was that. It's like I want to have that status. I want to fit in. I want to look cool. And now that I'm working with women, it's like this is the complete opposite now, where I'm actually comfortable in my own skin. I have that masculine safety, so I don't have to be jealous or judge and shame because I feel good in myself. So I'm like, this is my opportunity to lift up other women now, where I'm like not looking at you like, oh, you got this fancy job, like I wish I had a fancy job. Right? It's like or whatever, she's so pretty, I wish I was that pretty. And it's like, no, it's all of us are beautiful in our own ways, and this is how we can lift up each other, is by doing our own fucking work. It always comes down to that, taking accountability for ourselves.
I think everybody is also status hungry. That's it.
It really is.
Yeah, they're trying to get something from that. So, I wanted to. Actually, so I wanted to talk also about the history of it, because so I don't want to blame people for the culture that we have now, but so we've done a lot of work, and where this pegging women against each other may come from is during the witch hunts. This means something to me just because I was a midwife. During the witch hunts, they would attack women, and then for the woman to be safe, she would have to what's the word? Like she had to choose a woman to blame for whatever was happening. It's like get her. She's the one to blame. Like she's the witch. She's the midwife. She's the one. So women would be what's the word? Like the women would be attacking. Yeah, they would be attacking another woman. They would, because they needed to save themselves.
Yeah.
So we are no longer there. And can we move into this celebration? And again, it's just work. Like if we see a person who has a house and I wish I had a house at her age, and then can we see that as like, oh, it's possible?
Yeah.
Right? She just showed us that it's possible. You're in a relationship where it feels really good. The conflict is dealt with so beautifully, and you get to melt down, and then you get to repair, and then there's just so much love. Like, can we see that as expansion? Right? That's such a great couple dynamic. And can we, like whatever it is that we're seeking and wanting. So I find that there are already women who create environments like that. And I find that like there's also a lot of friendship circles that are already like that. But it's like, how can we create more of that for ourselves? One thing that I'm asking like to myself is, why am I the receiver of jealousy sometimes? And I think it's because of my people pleasing tendency. So that's my work. Yeah. Like, why do I care that someone is resentful for what I have? So so
for me, it's because I'm not doing the work. Like if I'm jealous of someone else and I really sit with it, I'm like, it's because I see them putting in that discipline and putting themselves out there doing the work that I know I need to do, and I'm not kicking myself like enough to do that.
But so do you have to kick yourself, or can you gently let yourself go there when the time is right?
Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
A bit of both. Yeah. It depends the situation. Like if I know I could be doing that, but I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do it because maybe I am feeling just sorry for myself, which is not, sometimes I need to kick myself out of that and be like, hey, you can do this. And sometimes it is just a matter of like organically getting there in time. And I'm like, oh, I know there's a vision I have for my life right now. And I know there's a lot in the road right now that I have to wait with time and patience. So that's where I'm like, I'm just going to be patient with that. But maybe in other ways in my life, I know I need to be a bit more disciplined. So sometimes I lean into my softness, and sometimes I need to lean into my like that masculine strength.
Your certainty. Yeah.
I'd like to add that also, like when we see posts on social media, we look at this, this person in, I don't know, whatever, Bali, who's like living the life. And it's like, oh, it looks like they have it all. They have all the money, the partner, the beautiful, I don't know, paradise, whatever. And it's like, this is just for show. It's not, who knows what's actually going on in the real life in herself. And I feel like that's like social media hasn't been helping with this, because it's all portraying this image of like perfection and making us feel bad about ourselves because we don't have that. But it's like, when we post on social media, we're never showing the true selves. So other people might be looking at us and be like, oh my gosh, she's got it all too, right? And comparing. It's like there's always this comparison game that's happening. But I feel like that's like when we're leaning into this like jealousy or feeling that we don't actually know the true story behind what's going on there.
Yeah. I think like if we're adults, we have to start discerning better who we follow. And then I think that for the children, that we need to step into our fierce feminine and be like, no, like kids should not be having access to any of these things, because girls are being really, really like affected by and like all the children
and AI stuff too.
Right.
And it's like the looking at perfection.
Right. Exactly. So like, can we step into the fierce feminine and be like, no, that's not happening, right? We do that for our like your own children if you are a parent, right? But then can we do that at a larger scale too, so that the parents who have less fighting them because of their life circumstances and don't have the capacity to, we are doing that for them too, right? So
yeah.
You guys have anything else to say? I just really want to thank like all the feminism that has come before us, and like this is such a different discussion than before, where we couldn't vote, and there are other people who can't vote and own property and be safe, and like the three of us are speaking from a place of safety right now. So like wherever we are, there's work to do, whether we are man or women, and so I hope that this has brought insight, and I hope that people can kind of reclaim what feminism is, rather than the F word. It doesn't have to be an F word, like freedom. But like can feminism for me look like this, and does that feel good to me, and will that change in 10 years? Yes. And what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to you? Like that's actually the message that I wanted to have come across in this episode. What does that mean to me? What does that mean to you? And let it change, and let it be different. Yeah, and we are all worthy. At the end of the day, I know that people say we're not equal. Like, I don't understand what that means. We all have different talents. And depending what you value as the talent that is the most valuable, like, of course, we're all going to be different, and that's our work to do and see, like, do I value someone who always has the answers, or do I value someone who does something else, right? And but we are all worthy of living a life of safety and abundance and joy, and ups and downs, and being safe with those ups and downs, right? So that's my point. Anything else?
I would just say, just quickly, disclaimer for women who may not feel safe where they are right now, if they happen to be listening or watching, there is a possibility for safety. And if you're in an unsafe situation and you want to leave, don't tell your partner. Reach out. There are resources. You could reach out to any of us here. You could reach out to a friend, family. There's resources online, want to talk about it, .com.ca. But I know that that's a huge privilege I have in my life, is safety. And there's so many women across the world that don't have that. And that is something that is huge in this. That's where feminism began, was equality, and for women to have that. So if you're in that situation, just be careful, be safe. It's very important that you don't tell your partner that you're going to leave, because that is where the most violence occurs. So just reach out to someone that you trust.
In the episode that I did, or that I had with Emily, there's she gave me some resources, so I'll go and copy and paste and put it in this episode. Yeah, feminism means different things for all of us, right? Yeah, so it's important to talk about those things too. Yeah.
And Women's Day shouldn't be just a day.
Yeah.
Should be celebrated every day.
And we can do that ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. We don't need the government to tell us what day it is. So I wish you all a really good day. Thank you.
Thank you.